These projects are designed to cultivate multiple skill sets that complement a series of videos created for the purpose of acquiring a foundational knowledge of the Python programming language. These projects will cover coding both console-based and GUI applications. tk-enter is a Python binding to the TK GUI toolkit, and its framework is built into Python's standard library, so it does not require the installation of any additional modules. This makes tk-enter a convenient choice for building graphical interfaces for Python applications. All source code in these videos is available at the 1byte@time GitHub repository. You will find a link to the code used in each video beneath it, in its description and comment section. You may use these links to download the source code.
This is a Python project that's more practice with lists, iterables, array type objects in Python. And we're going to import random to generate a random number. This is a word guessing game. And we have a multi-dimensional, a 2D array here. So we have an outer list, and the outer list contains inner list objects nested within it. And each of those inner list objects has two elements. So we have the answer that we're seeking, and we have a hint or clue that we'll give to the player. And we're going to scramble the characters of each of these words randomly and let the player guess it. And we'll give the player 3 guesses for each one. So how do we code this? Well, the number of words we want to set to the length of whatever is in word bank. And that's just going to count the elements of the number of lists nested inside it. And this way it's a bit more dynamic, such that we can add or remove or modify our inner lists to add new words and hints, and we don't have to worry about modifying and changing hard-coded values elsewhere in our program. So that's sort of the idea behind, wanting to set these values up at the top of the function or method, or alternatively in your global namespace. But here, everything happens inside the main method or function. We don't need to maintain any values when the function goes out of scope, and those values will be destroyed. So it's fine to declare them inside the main method or the main function. So the number of words, however many elements list are nested within our outer list here. Number of words to guess is 5. Now this will be the randomly selected words that we'll pull out of our word bank. So any random 5 of these words, and we could have a word bank that had 20 or 100, or, would make it more interesting, more challenging if we added a lot more, but we're just trying to keep it small here. We declare an empty array random words. We're going to populate this array. So we're just going to, for W in range 0 num words to guess, which would be 5. Again, this way, if we want to modify it, we don't want to use hard-coded values. If we modify it here, we want it to be reflected and changed throughout the rest of the game or the program. So it makes it easier to modify and maintain the code that way. So we're just appending and populating our array with empty elements. We're going to initialize some values here that we'll need in our game. We'll display, hey, you must guess, and then you will get however many guesses. But remember, these are integer values, so we have to parse or convert them to string values. Now, we need to generate an array of random numbers, but without duplicates. None of the words from our word bank that will be randomly selected can be exactly the same. They all need to be different. So how do we code that? How do we do that? Basically, what we need to do is generate an array, a random number generated for each word that they need to guess, and then we can use that and make sure it's unique to pull that word and hint pair, the inner list, from our word bank. Okay, so we'll create a while true loop, a repetition structure, and it'll be the length of random words, right? That's random words. Well, that's our empty array, but it's based on the number of words to guess. That's what we populated it with. So in this case, 5. We'll need 5 random numbers indexed 0 through 4. So we'll go through, and while counter is less than the length of random words, which is at this point 5 elements, we'll generate a random number using our random import, our module that we imported. And once we get our random number, we'll store it in rand_num, and we'll set this Boolean here, repeat, is set to be false. And then we're going to While repeat evaluates to false, what are we going to do? We're going to go through for x and range length random words. Okay, so again, how many elements was populated with number of words to guess? 5. So every element in that array of random words, we're going to go through, and if the random evaluates to be random words, then we have a duplicate, right? If the random number we generated, I mean, the first time through we won't because none of those other elements have any value. But let's say that we generated a 2, and the next random number we generate is also a 2, which can happen a lot. When you use random rapidly in a loop or iteration, you can often get uh, pseudo-random seeded values that are the same. And so to avoid those duplicates, if that random number matches any other number stored in our array, to make it transparent, we'll give it some verbosity so we can see what's happening. Hey, duplicate found, regenerating the number. What do? We set repeat to be true, and then we break, okay? Well, if we break out of this nested inner while true loop, what happens? We go back out here to the outer while true loop, okay? So if we found a duplicate, we regenerated it, we break, and then what do? We come out here and we generate another random number and store it in random. Again, set repeat to be false. And then if we were to go through each and every element and compare random to that element 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, as we iterate, as we cycle through or loop through that list object, that array, if we don't find any duplicates, okay, otherwise, then what? X will evaluate to the value of counter, and that's the subscript, that's the position in the list object array where we're going to store the random number, and then random words at that location, and we'll store the random number there. And then we'll increment count such that we can iterate through and continue generating random numbers. And then we'll set repeat to be true and cycle back through. Okay, so this is just to make sure that we get 5 random numbers, and in this case we don't want any duplicates because we don't want to end up pulling 2 of the same list objects out of our word bank. We want to make sure that every single one is unique and different, but in a random fashion. So does that make sense? A nested while true repetition structure here, an inner while and an outer while, and we're just using a Boolean to go through, and as we generate a random number, we'll store it, and then we'll go through and compare it to every other value stored in that array where we appended all those elements to. And if we find a match, if there's duplicates, we'll regenerate the number, and we'll just have it fall out, go back to the outer loop, and redo the whole process over again. Regenerate another random number, and we'll keep doing it until we make sure that we have a unique value of that's not stored in that array. All right. So by the time we get done with these two structures here, we have an array, a list object of random numbers, and there's no duplicates in that array. And then we can use this to index or to grab words from our word bank. Okay, word hint pairs. So the random list will just display it. In this case, we'll look at the value of random words to make it more verbose, more transparent. Now we're going to loop through for y and range, the number of words to guess. We're going to rand word is whatever it is going to be that element. Okay, so in random words, and then the word will then be rand word element 0, and then the hint is always the second element, right? Indexed as 1. So the word will be the first element, the clue will be the second element always. And this is that randomized, array. So it matches a range that is in our word bank, but it will be a random selection. Okay. So we'll go through and then scramble, and then we need to convert the string to a list of character or make it a character array. For the scrambling, we want to just take the characters and shuffle them around in some random fashion. Okay, so to do that, we need to do a little bit of casting, typecasting, or conversion here. So we'll take our word as a string and convert it to a character array. If we do that, we can then go through every single character in the word, generate a random number, and remember the fence post error, the off by 1, so hence we're subtracting 1, the length of word minus 1, so from the first character to the last. We'll randomize it a bit, and we'll take that random character, and temp 1 will be set to scramble, and temp 2 will be set to the character before it, the previous character. And in this case, we'll hold the value, and then it's sort of like almost like a bubble sort. Remember when we looked at the bubble sort project? So we hold that value in temp, and then we're just going to swap them. And we'll randomly, this is how we're going to randomly scramble that word into hopefully something that is not recognizable. And then guessing for word number will display, we'll give them the clue that corresponds, and then we'll give them the now scrambled word, okay? And then we have another while true loop. Okay, so while guess counter is less than number of guesses, they get 3 guesses or 3 attempts per word. We'll input, and then we're going to parse or convert guess counter to a string. So attempt number, and then we'll input, and they get to guess. And then if the guess evaluates to the word, the unscrambled word, hey, you did it. You got it right. Guess counter is equal to number of guesses, and we're going to increment the score. Okay. Otherwise, sorry, you didn't guess the word. If guess counter is greater than or equal to number of guesses, you're all out of guesses. They exceeded their maximum of 3 guesses. Otherwise, we will display, hey, you have made so many guesses so far, guess again, and they get another chance. Okay? Then game over, and the final score, and because score is a number, remember we have to parse it or convert it to a string so that, we want to do that. So let's go ahead and play our word game and see how it works. We'll run our word scramble here. Let me give us some screen real estate. For guess one, clue, no longer relevant to the situation. All right, so here's the scrambled word here. It would be obsolete. Obsolete. You did it. You guessed my word. My word was obsolete. Guessing word number 2. Again, we've scrambled it. Clue, a fear of open spaces. Agoraphobia. Let's get it wrong. First time. You have made 1 guess so far. Guess again. We'll get it wrong the second time. And let's agoraphobia. You did it. You guessed my word. Yay. Guessing for word number 3. Taking credit for someone else's work. And the scrambled version of the word, but that would be plagiarism. You did it. You guessed my word. The next word, fear of closed spaces, claustrophobia. But let's get this one wrong. Okay. All out of guesses for this word. My word was claustrophobia. So we tell them what it was, but they didn't get any points because they didn't get it right within 3 guesses. And the last word, blame it on me. And that wasn't scrambled too well there. But remember, this is random. But scapegoat is, we could tell that's scapegoat. Okay, game over. You did it. You guessed my word. My word was scapegoat. My final score was 4. So again, it's just a fun way to get a little bit more experience with lists, iterables, arrays, and repetition structures in Python to create a word guessing game.